Have you ever noticed that the least qualified people often occupy the most important positions? That incompetent boss who makes disastrous decisions, that political leader who ignores experts. It's not a coincidence. It's a psychological pattern that has been destroying civilizations for millennia, and you're trapped in it right now. There's a dark truth about human hierarchies that nobody wants to admit. Our systems are designed to elevate exactly the wrong people. Not by accident, but by invisible design. Incompetence doesn't rise despite the rules of the game. It rises because of them. And before you think this is just about politics or distant corporations, pause for a moment. Look around you. How many times have you seen someone genuinely brilliant being ignored while a mediocre manipulator received promotion after promotion? How many times have you yourself been passed over by someone who knew less but spoke louder? The answer lies in a cruel irony of human nature. Competence and power rarely walk together. And it starts with a phenomenon discovered in the 60s by a Canadian researcher named Lawrence Peter. He noticed something disturbing in all the organizations he studied. People were promoted based on performance in their current position, not on capability for the next position. An excellent salesperson becomes a mediocre manager. A talented teacher becomes a disastrous principal. And so, gradually, each position in a hierarchy ends up being occupied by someone who has reached their level of incompetence. He called this the Peter Principle. And it's terrifying because it's mathematically inevitable in any hierarchical system. But the issue goes much deeper. It's not just that incompetent people are promoted, it's that stupid people are specifically advantageous in these systems. And here, we need to define what stupidity really means in this context. We're not talking about raw intelligence or IQ. We're talking about something that Italian economist Carlo Cipolla called functional stupidity, that characteristic of people who cause harm to others while also harming themselves, but continue acting the same way. These are people who act without thinking about consequences, who ignore feedback, who confuse confidence with competence. And here's the first psychological secret. Stupid people in this sense don't suffer from imposter syndrome, while the truly competent constantly doubt themselves, tormented by awareness of how much they still don't know. The incompetent live in a bubble of unshakable certainty. It's called the Dunning-Kruger effect, where those with less knowledge are the most confident in their abilities. They don't see their own limitations because they lack the knowledge necessary to recognize them. And in a room full of intelligent doubt and hesitation, stupid certainty always looks like leadership. Think about it. When you're in a meeting and someone proposes a complex idea, carefully considered, full of nuances, and another person simplifies everything into a confident soundbite, who usually convinces the room? Certainty sells. Complexity scares. And we, as a species, have a deep cognitive bias in favor of apparent simplicity, even when it's dangerously misleading. Our brains evolved to make quick decisions in African savannas, not to navigate complex modern systems. So we gravitate toward whoever offers simple answers to complicated problems, even when those answers are completely wrong. But there's something even more sinister happening. Stupid people have an evolutionary advantage in hierarchies because they're not limited by scruples. While the competent hesitate to take unfair credit, to sabotage colleagues, to brazenly lie to superiors, the incompetent don't have these moral or cognitive restrictions. They don't understand why these things are wrong or simply don't care. And in organizations where climbing is a zero-sum game, the absence of ethics is a brutal competitive advantage. You've seen this, haven't you? That person who steals your ideas in meetings, that colleague who blames others for their own mistakes, that manager who only promotes bootlickers. They rise not despite their moral and intellectual mediocrity, but exactly because of it. And while you're busy doing excellent work, developing your skills, being ethical, they're busy playing a completely different game, a game you didn't even realize was happening. How do you feel knowing that your integrity might be your biggest disadvantage? The truth is, we live in a collective illusion. We believe meritocracy exists, that talent is rewarded, that justice prevails. But these are stories we tell to keep the system functioning. The reality is that most human hierarchies don't select for competence. They select for conformity, for ability to navigate internal politics, for the appearance of leadership instead of real leadership. And stupid people are great at appearing to be what they're not, because they don't have enough awareness to feel the cognitive dissonance this would cause in an intelligent person. But here's where this gets personal for you. If you're feeling frustrated, if you're wondering why your talent isn't recognized, if you're tired of seeing less qualified people overtake you, you're not crazy. You're seeing the system for what it really is. And this awareness, though painful, is the first step toward your liberation. Because once you understand the real rules of the game, you can consciously decide whether you want to play, how to play, or whether you want to create a completely new game. If this idea has already resonated with you, if you're starting to see patterns that were always there but never named, imagine what comes next. Subscribe so you don't miss this journey of awakening, because what I'm going to show you now will forever change how you navigate power systems. So what's the solution? How do you thrive in a world where stupidity is rewarded and competence is punished? The first answer, and the most radical, is to recognize that you cannot fix the system from within it. Corrupt systems self-perpetuate because the people at the top benefit precisely from their dysfunction. Expecting an incompetent leader to recognize their own incompetence and install meritocratic processes is like expecting water to flow upward. It won't happen. But there's a deeper path here, one that comes from Stoic philosophy and Eastern contemplative traditions. Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor and philosopher, wrote about this 2,000 years ago. He was surrounded by incompetence, betrayal, mediocrity, and his response wasn't bitterness, it was radical autonomy. He focused on what he could control, his own excellence, his own virtues, his own actions. He understood that true freedom doesn't come from changing the external system, but from developing an internal system so strong that external systems become irrelevant. This doesn't mean accepting injustice. It means choosing your battlefields wisely. It means recognizing that you can spend your entire life fighting against the current of a broken system, or you can build your own boat. And here's the transformative revelation. In the modern era, building your own boat has never been more possible. You're no longer completely dependent on corporate or institutional hierarchies to survive or thrive. The truly intelligent are doing something radical. They're opting out of the game completely. They're building independent careers, their own businesses, value networks based on real competence instead of politics. They're creating parallel systems, where meritocracy isn't an empty slogan, but a survival necessity. Because when you depend directly on the results of your work, incompetence is quickly exposed and eliminated. But there's an even deeper secret that few know, and it's in the very nature of intelligence itself. Truly intelligent people don't just work hard, they work strategically. They understand that in a world where stupidity rises, the only sustainable advantage is becoming irreplaceable through rare and valuable skills. Not skills that any confident idiot can imitate, but deep expertise that demands years of dedicated development. The crucial difference is this: the incompetent focus on appearances, on superficial networking, on political games. The competent focus on building real value, on solving difficult problems, on creating things that matter. And while in the short term the incompetent may appear to be winning, in the long term the market always punishes mediocrity. Always. It may take longer in protected bureaucratic systems, but eventually reality imposes its verdict. Here's your transformative choice. You can become bitter about the system, or you can use your understanding of it to transcend it. You can complain that stupid people are in power, Or you can build personal power so undeniable that hierarchies become irrelevant to you. It's not easy. It demands iron discipline, constant learning, courage to be different, but it's possible. And the alternative is spending your life like a rat trapped on a wheel, complaining that less talented rats are being fed first. And here's the revealing climax, the truth that will reorganize everything you thought about power. The reason stupid people rise isn't because the system is broken. The system is functioning exactly as designed. Hierarchies don't exist to produce optimal results. They exist to maintain stability and control, and mediocre, obedient people are much better at maintaining stability than disruptive, questioning geniuses. Think about it. If you were an emperor, a CEO, a politician wanting to maintain power, would you really want brilliant subordinates who constantly question your decisions, who see your flaws, who could replace you? Or would you want loyal, predictable subordinates, incapable of threatening you intellectually? The answer is obvious, and that's why hierarchical systems naturally select for mediocrity. It's not a bug, it's a feature. This means that every time you see an incompetent person being promoted, you're not watching a system failure. You're watching the system working perfectly for its true purposes, which were never about meritocracy or justice. They were always about control and perpetuation of power, and this realization is simultaneously liberating and terrifying. Liberating because you finally understand the real rules. Terrifying because it means expecting the system to change is expecting it to contradict its own nature. So here's the final truth, the lesson that changes everything. You don't win by playing their game. You win by creating a new game where your rules apply. You win by building expertise so deep that you become indispensable. You win by cultivating networks based on real value, not flattery. You win by developing financial and intellectual autonomy that frees you from depending on broken systems. Incompetence will continue to rise to power. It always will, in any hierarchical system large enough. But this only matters if you choose to remain dependent on these systems. The real revolution isn't trying to fix corrupted hierarchies from within. It's building parallel alternatives where competence is the only currency that matters. And the digital age has given us this possibility for the first time in human history. You don't need approval from a mediocre boss. You don't need a promotion in a dysfunctional company. You don't need to play political games with people who will never recognize your value. What you need is clarity about your unique skills, courage to build something of your own, and discipline to continue when it gets difficult. Because it will get difficult. But it will be difficult building something yours, not difficult serving someone else's incompetence. The question isn't why stupid people rise to power. The question is, why are you still waiting for their permission to express your brilliance? Why are you still playing a rigged game, hoping that this time will be different? The definition of insanity is doing the same thing repeatedly and expecting different results, and continuing to invest in systems that reward mediocrity while expecting them to recognize your excellence is exactly that, insanity. So here's your invitation to awaken. Stop fighting against incompetence in power and start building power through competence. Develop rare skills, create undeniable value, build relentless autonomy. And when you're finally free, when you no longer need validation from broken systems, you'll look back and realize that the rise of the stupid was never your problem. It was just the backdrop against which your own journey of mastery unfolded. If this message touched something deep in you, if you're ready to stop complaining and start building, like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who needs to hear this truth. Because while the world continues elevating mediocrity, we're building a community of people committed to real excellence, and you've just been invited to be part of it.